All right, I wanted to help you get started on your op art value project. Make sure you do some value practice, some shading, so there's no light gaps or dark lines, so that you can end up with a 3D optical illusion that the paper is wavy. So I'm going to take you through some steps. It does take a bit to get started, so let's do it. Some 9 by 12 paper works good. 12 by 12 is probably the biggest you'd want to work with. You need a ruler. Pencil is good in case you need to erase. What we're going to do is make 6 lines that intersect, so we have 12 triangle sections. So I'll make my first one here. I'm almost going across the paper, and I kind of like to offset mine, so I'm going to make one here, so that way my triangles don't intersect smack dab in the middle. I like a little more asymmetrical look. There's 2 lines. Let's do a third one. See a fourth one. We can do a fifth one here for sure. Let's see how I want to angle that. You're the artist. You can do that however you want. Like I can decide to make some of these triangles a little bigger, some smaller. I think that was 5 lines. I think I can do one more. Let's see how this goes. 6 lines. I think it matters whether you have an even or odd amount of sections to do your curves. So let's go ahead and get going on that. I'm going to do the smallest one. So what you want to do is have it curve out from the center, then in toward the center. Out, in, out, in, out, in, and I'm connecting them as I go. Out, in, out, and then in. I got a big one there. And then you want to repeat that pattern. So I'm going to start with this triangle section and get all of my out curves. Make sure you're kind of echoing, kind of repeating that same curve. And then this one's in. This one's out. Now these ones are longer. I could probably do another one here. This one goes in, in, in. This one's out, out. Ooh, there's a big one here. Okay, this one's got to dip in. In and in. And then out, out. And then got some smaller sections now. In, out, out, in, out, out. And here's another big one. It's going to swoop. Uh-oh, uh-oh. That's why we do it in pencil. That's okay. This one actually is going to swoop down to this one. Whoosh. Whoosh. All right. So now you want to decide your black and white sections, and I'm going to use X's for where I'm going to color in black, and it's every other. Black, white, black, white. So that means this one must be black, white, black, white. So you want to go through and do that. Make sure you don't miss any Or more importantly, make sure you don't accidentally mark one as a black one that's not supposed to be black. Because it's really hard to undo black Sharpie. You probably have to cut out some white paper and cover it up. So it's much easier just to mark this off correctly beforehand. So marking it with some X's for where my black Sharpie would go. And then you're ready to fill it in with some Sharpie. I have one that I have partially filled in. So when you're using Sharpie, it is quite smelly. So I do want to warn you, you're going to need to take some Sharpie breaks, both for your nose and for your Sharpie, because Sharpie will seem to run out. If you go too fast with it, you might think it's dying, but really you might just have to go slower. Or it might be time to give that Sharpie a break if it's not working great and get out a second Sharpie. It's good to have two Sharpies nearby while you're working on this. You want to make sure you can almost just outline the whole thing with Sharpie first and make sure you fill in all of those X sections that you've marked off. Oh, and you might get frustrated using this one is actually a fine point Sharpie. Maybe you'd want to get out a wider tip Sharpie. Mine's around here somewhere. This one is called a chisel tip. It's much bigger and a bigger smell too. But you can use that to fill things in rather quickly. Maybe not going all the way up to the edges because it's not very precise. And then get that fine tip Sharpie out to fill in those extra spots. Ooh, but every once in a while you're going to go, wow, that's too much Sharpie smell for me. Don't wait until you have a headache or feel nauseous to stop and take a break. Maybe every few stripes you'll want to kind of take a break like I am. I'm not completely done with my Sharpie. And let's do some shading. I'm going to work maybe with this one here. It's all dry. You want to make sure your Sharpie is dry before you color on it. And I have my white color pencil. And I'm going to start with my white highlight in the middle. Make it nice and bright. You want that solid white because you're not really going to cover over all the Sharpie all the way. So get it as white, especially in the middle, as you can. And then you want to start gradually putting less pressure on pencil so that it slowly goes off. I'm going to keep doing more here so that you just have a little bit when you get to that edge. And then you want to do the same thing to the other side. Slowly making sure there's no gaps, no dark lines. Do some shading that gradually goes off, leaving the edges dark black. And then with your pencil, you're going to want to do the opposite. You're going to fill in the dark for the white sections. And I'm using a regular pencil. You can also use a black color pencil, which will go blacker easier with less pressure, but they're harder to erase. So use with caution. And now I want to fill that in with dark, and I'm going to start getting lighter. I'm getting some gaps, fill in the gaps. And then I want to leave the white highlight in the middle. And then do the same thing to the other side. It's like lots of little value scales. And some of you will use more pressure than others. We're all going to have kind of our style of shading. After all, the lighting that could be shining on this illusion could vary. Now, if some of you are thinking about doing finger blending, it's not going to work very well with color pencil anyway. And watch out if you're thinking about doing finger blending with pencil that you don't turn everything into the same medium value of gray. So watch out for that. Now, if things are getting too dark, you can lighten color pencil. It might not erase all the way away, but you can lighten it up. So you want to keep doing that, watching out for, ooh, I see a few. Watch out for those gaps and those lines. Right, and then you can shade a little bit more and then maybe keep doing more Sharpie, kind of go back and forth and enjoy the results. It will look amazing. Your hard work will pay off.